Alrighty, today we have an exciting guest that I've been stoked about for a while because one of the things that I have not yet really brought onto this podcast at all is Nostr. However, if people have followed me on Instagram or Twitter, pretty much any of my other social medias, I basically use all of them as a marketing platform to send people to Nostr now, which is what all the cool people are doing. So, Derek Ross, thank you so much for joining me, sir. Appreciate you coming by.
Thank you for having me, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here and apparently join other like-minded folks and talk about Nostr and why it's so cool and why we're talking about it on all of our other social platforms and why we think everybody needs to know about Nostr.
Yes, yes. So when I was going back through researching your background, your history, I was originally going to just jump straight into the weeds of Noster, but I love your backstory too much, and I feel like some people will get some value out of this. Tell me about your Bitcoin origin story, how you started coming into Bitcoin first before we dive into the next step of Noster.
Oh man, like I don't know. We can go real back. You want me to go back to like 2009, like that part
Yes,
of the Bitcoin story?
yes,
Okay, all right.
the sad
Like
violin story.
the real origin story. All
Yeah.
right, so rewind 15 years ago. I'm a nerdy gamer and I play World of Warcraft. And one of my guild members, one of the guys I played video games with, he's like, "Hey, check out this thing called Bitcoin. You like nerdy internet stuff? It's money of the internet." I'm like, "Well, all right, I'll check it out." He's like, Install this, run it, and you're set up." So I did, and I specifically remember the notification popping up and telling me that I had mined or found a block. And back then, that was 50 Bitcoin. And I don't remember how many times that happened. I know it happened at least one time. But after, I don't know, 3, 4 months, something like that, I said, what the hell is this thing? What does it do? And why is it making my office hot? Because like my computer ran 24/7 at maximum speed, right? So it was hot and always running and always on, never shut down for months at a time. And I didn't know anything besides that's what it was doing because I didn't do any research into it and just ran what a friend told me to run. So I said, all right, I'm done with that. I uninstalled it, deleted it, and then didn't care about Bitcoin for years later. In 2013, I remember browsing Reddit and I saw somebody mention Dogecoin. And I'm like, hey, that's like that Bitcoin thing from a few years ago. All right, I remember that. And then I mined Dogecoin for a few months, and then sold it for Bitcoin. I at least knew that Bitcoin was better. Um, Sold that as like that was like 2014, I think. I sold it, and I saw like the fiat value crashing and going down in value. I'm like, oh man, I'm losing money, got to get out. And I sold again, not knowing anything, and then did not look into Bitcoin, did not care about Bitcoin at all until 2020 happened, and economically things around the world changed where the average person knew that something was weird and something was different, and monetary policy changed and expanded. And so then I started looking into that, just reading and researching, and hey, found my old friend Bitcoin. And kind of the rest is kind of history. You go down that Bitcoin rabbit hole, you realize what actually Bitcoin is, what it means, what it can mean for the future, and why my Bitcoin is from 15 years ago is long gone. I don't know if I had mentioned this before, Ben, but back then, whenever I would destroy a hard drive, I used to take it apart into the metal spiral discs inside those platters, and I used to make mirrors out of them. Just a geeky, nerdy thing to do, and so yeah, probably I made a, I don't know, multi-million-dollar mirror out of my Bitcoin at one point in my life. But yeah, they're long gone and properly disposed of, we'll say. But hey, that's fine. It takes people time to get in and to learn, and I'm happy I'm here now. I'm happy I got in a few years ago because I would be kicking myself if I didn't pay more attention back then.
If you had to throw a dart at how many Bitcoin you think that thing mined before you junked it, what would you predict?
I mean, it's at least 50, right? Because
Yeah,
the block reward was 50, so I don't know, maybe 50, 100, who knows? I don't really try to look at it because I absolutely have no clue. But yeah, it's probably life changing money, That's all right though. I'm happy to be here now. It's just as exciting now as it would have been back then.
and this is why I brought it up, and I had to just twist the knife barely because so many people out there can get so much value on this great mindset that you have
Eh,
of the fact that you could be super ultra rich now, but you know what? I didn't know then. I know better now. I learned my lesson. I made a
yeah,
donation to the Bitcoin network.
yeah, absolutely. I like to say that we're all humans. Humans make mistakes, and to be a better human, we have to learn from it and grow. And that's what I try to do. I didn't learn back then, but I learned now, and I'm using that growth to better my family's future now. Better
Absolutely.
late than
And
never.
yeah, exactly. And so many people need to just hear that. Like I know that when people hear it now, they just automatically think, "Oh, I'm too late because I heard about it years ago and I didn't buy it then. Shucks, I wish I could go back and
Yeah.
change that." And then they just kind of continue to not do it, as if like
Well,
they
yeah.
don't understand the sunk cost fallacy of just the fact that time continues moving forward, and like no one has ever YOLO'd into Bitcoin the first time they heard about it. Everyone thinks it sounds like a stupid scam,
Yeah.
and everybody just brushes it aside. And now that there's so many more scams and noise being produced constantly, it's even harder to like know that you have to forgive yourself. And
I
it's
think, Ben, looking back in late 2020 when I like fully understood Bitcoin and started to, heavily buy Bitcoin, um, I look at it as like, man, what if when I first, started to read into Bitcoin earlier in 2020, just 6 months earlier, like, man, what if I would have, instead of just doing a small DCA, what if I would have done a massive lump sum, right? Like, there's always, like, I'm not early, but man, like, what if I was 1 month earlier, or my DCA was larger? Like, there's a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas, but you don't let that beat you up. You look at it as when you're finally ready, you get in when you can and what you can, and that's kind of where we're at.
and just start making progress and stacking sats. That's
Yeah,
all you can do. It's a humbling experience because every single person goes through that realization of,
yeah,
dang, I should have listened to that one friend that was
yeah.
spamming my DMs on that one time, telling me to buy some Bitcoin. But
And then you
it
need to listen
happens.
to the friend that tells you not to shitcoin, because everyone goes through that journey too, I think, right? Like you start understanding Bitcoin a little bit and you're like, "Oh man, what if there's like a better Bitcoin?" Right? And then you start buying some other things cuz you think it's all similar, you think it's all related. But then once you truly actually understand Bitcoin, you do enough research, you do enough reading, podcast listening, watching videos, whatever, read enough books, then you're like, "Oh, okay, everything else is literally a scam trying to defraud people or fraud people and trying to get their Bitcoin, basically. That you'll sell all your altcoins, all your shit coins, all your meme tokens, whatever, and you'll just go all in on Bitcoin because you realize that nothing else will ever replace it."
And it fascinates me to no end how impervious the human nature is to always think, oh, like I'll just find the next Bitcoin.
Like,
It's
probably,
impossible
yeah,
to escape. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how technical you are, how rich you are. It is so rare. And like you need to have like a really thick like Austrian economics background or like a very
yeah,
good blended technical background to be able to see through those scams first off, because I spent, 4 years just doing a crypto blog thinking I was totally smarter than these Bitcoin guys. Like how they're using the old one? Like what's
yeah,
wrong with them? And then it humbles you. It humbles everybody.
yeah.
Sooner or later, it depends on how quickly you can dig through that swamp.
Yeah, it's wild. Everybody goes through the same phases. I mean, it's just so when you have a new friend, that's going through it, you're like, man, I'm gonna try to save you the pain, and I'm gonna let you know I did this already. This is how it's gonna work out. But if you need to do you, then I'll welcome you back in a few months or in a year or whatever. You do your own research if you don't trust me, and that's fine. Like we like to say that too. Don't trust, verify. So if one of your friends is going to shitcoin, I mean that they're going through that phase themselves, right? Like they're not trusting, they're verifying themselves, and it's gonna bring them back. Just wait on them; they'll come back.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny how often that comes up in the
Hmm.
conversations I have with Bitcoiners almost every time, because we all can relate to that. We can all
Yeah.
relate to thinking like climbing. I love the Mount Stupid meme. I'm not sure if you've seen that, of this, I don't remember the exact trajectory, but it starts out like, oh, I'm new, I'm learning, and then there's like a peak of Mount Stupid where your perception of being smart and like how smart you actually are is the most detached. And that's the
Yeah.
shitcoin phase, and then you need to get humbled, go all the way down the mountain, and then the Bitcoin adventure begins, where you start learning
Yeah.
about Bitcoin and you start falling down a real rabbit hole. And then Nostr comes around.
Then
Nostr
Nostr
is the
comes
next
around.
one. And
Yeah.
this is one where it's funny because this is a pretty good segue, because throughout my shitcoining journey, there were definitely, shitcoin variations of like decentralized social media. And like check out this cool new like decentralized token that has a social media platform. And so I was definitely skeptical, like most people are, similar as they were to Bitcoin, when I heard about Nostr, because I've seen so many of these, decentralized fill in the blank things before. And I think as a Bitcoiner, you start to just really prick your ears up. Like the word decentralization is just so overused. So how is
Yes.
this thing actually decentralized? So I would love we'll start with just a general overview of what Nostr is in your words, and we'll start picking away at it piece by piece after you kind of give us the breakdown.
Sure. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. When someone mentions decentralization, you're like, okay, this is a buzzword. Where's the scam, right? So Nostr, it's an acronym. It stands for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relays. So what does that mean? And it means it is your notes or text-based information, and that information is sent out or broadcasted to servers or nodes or relays, as we call them, relays on Nostr. And that houses the information. And since that information is housed by anybody and everybody, because it's an open protocol where anybody can run a relay, and then anybody can run the clients of that protocol. Anybody can play, anybody can participate, and because it's open and decentralized, anybody can build. So it's a completely open and permissionless social protocol. And it's I think that if you're in Bitcoin, you would understand what a protocol is. But just in case here, how it differs from other social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, all these Twitter, X, whatever. All these things are platforms. They actually are platforms that operate on the HTTP protocol, the web protocol, right? So they're social platforms that a single entity owns, a single big tech company owns, and it's not decentralized. It's completely 100% centralized. So Nostr fixes that by allowing anybody to run this piece of this social protocol. And it's a protocol where anybody can build an application and hook into it, similar to email or similar to web browsers. And for the World Wide Web, we have Firefox, we have Opera, we have Chrome, we have Internet Explorer, all these other browsers, and they all access HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, the web. They all access this in their own special way. Some of them have different bells and whistles and ways to enhance the user experience or display web pages slightly differently, but they all generally access the same information. That's the same way Nostr is. We have all sorts of different clients to access Nostr, and we have clients that are more social, so they are maybe like a Reddit alternative or a Twitter or Instagram alternative. And then we have clients that are your other stuff, your other parts of social communication. which is what makes Nostr very, very powerful, because as long as you are using any type of app that has some sort of social communication, whether it be, a forum, a review app like Yelp or something like that, where you can put reviews, maybe it's a podcast app where you can leave comments, any type of social interaction where a user can leave any type of feedback or a comment could be utilized on Nostr. So that makes it really, really powerful, because when you say to a developer, hey, developer, build an application and we want to have users be able to talk to each other on our application, the developers then have to build that social infrastructure. And with Nostr, you would just tie into that protocol, integrate with the protocol, and you immediately have the social infrastructure there. You don't even have to run any portion of that yourself if you don't want to. And you already have thousands of users, and users can then take their entire social graph, which this is a very important part of Nostr, is you can take your entire social graph, all of your followers, all your contacts, your feed, everything, and you can hop between all of these different apps and have the same contacts, have very similar experiences. And that's really, really, really powerful. And why? Because it's all decentralized and no single entity owns or controls all of your data, because you can take your data with you, and you can take all of your data with you to every single micro platform or every single service or piece of software that you're running that supports Nostr. It's really, really, really cool to be able to take your entire social graph with you. Like, we really haven't been able to do that before. And the best part of it, I can run that part. I can run that part of my graph if I want to. I can run my own relay and house all of my personal social data, and my wife's and my children's and my parents, aunts, uncles, my entire community, my town, whatever I wanted to do. I can run that portion for as many people as I want. I can run and make it private. I can make it public, and I don't have to rely on Twitter and Elon Musk to say what I can or can't do. It's really, really cool. So if you understand why censorship resistance and why decentralization is important and how it works with Bitcoin, you can apply all of that to Nostr, because with Bitcoin, you can't transact freely until you have censorship resistance and decentralization. And Nostr is the same way. You can't communicate freely until you can do those two things either.
And one of the things you mentioned there definitely was one of the things that stuck out to me the most when I was first learning about it, which is the fact that when you get a follower on Nostr, that is like a permanent follower that will be attached to you no matter which different applications you use. So if we're like, I mean, I'm getting kind of cosmic early here. I'm sure we can do this a little bit later, but if we, in the future when there's, a Reddit type client and a Twitter type client and maybe a YouTube type client, where these are all platforms that Nostr is kind of the underpinning all of those, your followers will be connected to you no matter where you post everywhere. Because right now, each platform you jump to, you're starting from zero every time. And it's a
Yes.
huge pain in the butt to start on a new platform and tell all the people on your other platforms, like, hey, can you please follow me on these other ones, that because now I'm starting there and I'm going to be
Yeah.
building things there. What Nostr basically does is makes it so you have that base of followers, and any of the applications that are plugged into Nostr that you use, your followers will be there with you automatically. Did I explain that
Yes.
decently well? Would you do it any
Yeah,
differently?
yeah. No, that's absolutely right. So, if you were a YouTube user and then one day you're like, I want to start using Instagram, you don't have to end all of your videos saying, follow me on Instagram. You don't have to do that. They just have to sign into Instagram and they're already following you. It's so cool. Like, but of course that doesn't exist with YouTube and Instagram, because they're their own segregated platforms. They're siloed, and they don't play well together. But with Nostr, there's multiple different clients that do that. For example, with Nostr's version of YouTube, since I mentioned that, is called flare.pub. So with that website, you can post videos, and then maybe I sign into an app on my phone. Maybe I sign into Primal. That's my Twitter clone, and I see that person's videos. Or maybe I sign into Flockster.com, which is the Nostr version of Facebook events, or Meetup.com, and you see the events from that user because you're following that user. It's very, very cool how all of these different apps, all these different platforms can all work together because you're already following that person, because you follow public keys. It's kind of confusing with if you're not really familiar with, and most people aren't. You say, I'm following a public key. What's that? Like, no one knows what that is. Like, but that's kind of one of the technical aspects of how Nostr works and why it works, because you don't really follow individual users per se. You follow their public key across the entire network, and their public key is how you read the information that they publish, and that public key can't publish any information until the private key signs a transaction saying that this user actually did it. And if you're a Bitcoiner, some of that might sound kind of familiar, because that's kind of how Bitcoin transactions work, where you have your public key address, and you have your private key to sign your transactions to send Bitcoin. So it's very similar public key cryptography, how the two function.
Yeah, it's just a new way of people being able to verify that they are who they are. And just
Yeah.
how you have a public key, which I can share around and say, hey, here's my Nostr public key. People see those big strings of letters and numbers, starts with npub, so that's the npub, is that's your public key. So you can spam that all over Twitter, which I do very often, and say, hey, here's my npub, and then people can use that and go find you on Nostr. That's a public key. And then the private key is the one you use to log in as the person you say you are on a client. So basically, like if you mentioned Primal, I also use Primal. So I would go to Primal and I enter that private key, and that's what that unlocks the keys to the castle of posting as Ben, and basically just proof that you are you. And so you don't want to share that private key, or someone else will get to use your account, and then you're basically screwed. Just like if you gave someone your Bitcoin private keys, you don't want to do that. And some people will think like, oh, that's scary, but I mean, it's the exact same thing as Twitter. Like if you give someone your Twitter password, the same thing happens. Now, obviously, there's fancy ways to log in without having to put in your password every time. But the same thing, we have the same thing for Nostra. I use my Albi extension. So Albi
Yeah.
is like the Lightning Wallet extension where I have that all set up. So I can just, basically, I have a few different Nostra accounts. So I just click the little Albi extension in my browser. I choose who I want to log in as, and then I pull up Primal, and boom, it's done just like that. So I never even
Yeah.
have to put in my private key anymore. So
So people that are familiar with Bitcoin hardware wallets, you may have heard people call them signing devices, because that's all that they do, is they act as a device to sign a transaction. And Nostr has that. And you have signing devices such as the Albi extension, like you mentioned. There's another extension called Nostr Connect, NOS2X. There's actual LN bits, makes physical hardware devices for signing transactions. And then there's on Android, there's a application called Amber. Amber is a signing device. It's a signing application. So Nostr has this too, where there's multiple different extensions or apps or devices that you can put your private key into, and it will sign transactions, or you interact with it in one way or another to sign transactions on your behalf. Because I wouldn't recommend going out there and putting your NSEC, your private key, into every client. Because when you first get on Nostr, you're like, oh, it's like a kid in a candy store. You want to try everything, and you're running around trying to try all the different apps and everything. You don't want to go put your NSEC into every single app. You want to use extensions and apps if you can, or just use a burner account for that matter. Because you know, unlike Twitter, if you accidentally leak your password, your private key, you can't unleak it. You can't change it. Where on Twitter you could, maybe go through identity verification, KYC, and get your account recovered and reset and all that stuff. We don't really have a whole lot of that on Nostr. I'm gonna say we don't really have a lot of that because there is a new. It's still very early, so I'll mention it now. But there is something similar to this now on Nostr. One of our more uh, one of our more talented and well-known developers, his name's Pablo. He makes just he makes more apps than I've forgotten about. Like he's all the time putting out new apps and microservices. Super amazing, friendly guy, super intelligent guy, and he's always building. And he made this new onboarding experience for Nostr, where it's very similar to Twitter, where you don't have to ever hear the words public key and private key. You just sign up for an app. The application generates that public key and private key for you. You get an email, you enter an email address and create a password, and this application will manage your key for you. And it allows you to have a very similar experience to what you're used to with like Facebook or Twitter. But if you want your private keys, you can request them and you can get them and you can take them and sign in elsewhere. But this is a new experience. There's only a couple apps that support it as far as I know. Flare.pub does. If you were to go there now, you can just sign up for Nostr essentially. I'm hoping that more clients, more apps in the future support this method, because if we really want Nostr to grow and expand outside of technical users, we don't want to confuse people by telling them right away, all right, here's your public key and your private key, because they're going to look at you like you're crazy because they've never heard of this before, right? Like they've never used it before. So we do need some more friendly methods. And for the more technical people, we need to give them the more advanced tools to take their NSEC, their private key with them, and to use it across the board if they want to. But the average person off the street's going to want something easy, something or somebody to manage it for them. And we're just kind of now getting into those experiences. There's another application, ZBD. They're the Bitcoin gaming rewards company. Their social network is actually built on Nostr, and they manage your private key for you. You create a ZBD account. You don't even know that you have a Nostr private key. It's just all managed by them, and it's just that's how we were talking earlier. If a developer built a social experience and they wanted to hook into Nostr because they wanted to gain access to all of Nostr's users and features, so they didn't have to build their own social experience, they did it. They just incorporated Nostr, and their users really don't know that they're using Nostr. It's just the in-app socials to them. It's really, really interesting, and I'm sure we'll probably see a lot more of that as Nostr grows and expands. But anyways, enough rambling. Private keys and public keys are getting better.
Real quick before we
Yeah,
jump into that, though, something I really quick want to say. First of all, was I'm glad you mentioned Pablo. That guy's awesome.
Pablo. Yes.
One of my favorite Nostr podcasts out there right now is him on John Vallis's podcast, the Bitcoin Rapid Fire. I listen to them talk about the future, and it just got me super hyped. So I will definitely be hitting him up, hopefully, to do conversation in the future. Um, Also, I would like to vouch for the non-technical idiots out there. It's not like it's impossible to use. Like, it's still very usable. It's not like Twitter. It's just a little bit rougher around the edges.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a learning curve there, which is totally natural for a brand new protocol. And like we've mentioned a few times, there's so many different clients. So I'm kind of bouncing around between all of them to sort of explore and see what they're all doing. And they're always changing. They're innovating in different ways. So it's fun.
Absolutely.
It's totally fun. Like, of course,
Yeah.
there's little doohickeys here and there that don't work, and it's a little clunkier. But I mean, you're at the ground floor of a brand new movement here. So
You look at
enjoy
it.
the ride, I
Yeah.
would say.
You look at Nostr and you say, some things aren't perfect and you don't like that. Well, then you have to look at, these other applications that have been around for 15, almost 20 years now, have had a lot of time to hone their platform in and build what users want. They also have billions of dollars and thousands of developers. the vast majority of Nostr applications are built by one person team. Maybe there's 3 people working on a team, and they're doing it for free in their spare time. They don't have user experience teams helping them along the way. It's just developers doing what they love, in a very much hobby project. There are some companies that I think there's maybe 2 that have emerged thus far, maybe more, but it's all so early. You hate to be cliche and be like, we're early, but that really is the case. We're watching a protocol and dozens of platforms pop up right before our very eyes. Like, you don't get to see that. It kind of happens in the background, in the shadows, and then in stealth, and comes out of nowhere, fully launched. Well, that's not the case with Nostr. It's very transparent in that regard, that we can see everything happening.
Yeah, because it's completely open source, and like all these developers and clients are still figuring out their business model. like they haven't
Yeah,
even really gotten figure out how they're going to make money on this yet. And I
that's a
think you
topic
and I
right
both
there. Yeah.
agree that. I mean, just in the last like 48 hours, I mean, it might have even been last night. I think that Damas and Will just announced like that the purple version of Damas, which is like the big Apple client, and they're going to have like a paid version. I haven't dug super deep into it
Yeah.
because I'm Android and Apple sucks, but I'm
Yeah,
sure it's cool.
absolutely. I am there for you, but I love Will and Vanessa and a lot of the people from Damas. So that's actually a good topic to talk about here, real quick. Is a lot of people, when you mention Noster and all these clients, a lot of people that have business sense, one of the first questions they're going to ask is, "Well, how does it make money?" It's like you're like, but but they're not wrong. Developers like to eat, and they don't want to work for free. So yes, funding is tough because uh, when you don't have a whole lot of users, and you're trying not to do advertisements, and you're trying not to go down the dark VC rabbit hole, there's not a whole lot of options out there. So a lot of Nostr is supported with value for value right now. However, there was $5 million donated by Jack Dorsey to OpenSats to fund Nostr development. So there's a lot of Nostr projects that have received funding over the past year. They're going to receive funding, until that funding is dried up. And funding won't be around forever. So developers are starting to think, okay, when funding dries up, we need to be able to continue to eat, and we like to live in a house. So how do we get paid? And as you mentioned, Dalmas, one of the most popular Nostr clients, just launched their subscription model, where you get, from a small monthly fee, you get a couple bonus features. And there's some other clients that do that too. The Snort and Iris clients have subscription model as well. I don't think any other clients have subscription model off the top of my head, but I'm sure more now will start to follow Damas's suit. It is in the past, like barely 24 hours, Damas now has over 200 subscribers, and from what I'm seeing, a majority of the subscribers are paying for the 1 year subscription. They're not doing a monthly subscription of 15,000 sats. They're doing a yearly subscription for 150,000 sats. A couple people I saw have paid for multiple years. So people really want to support developers on Nostr, and people really want to support people that are building out this protocol. That won't work for every application. That won't work for everybody, but it'll work for some. So other developers are going to have to come up with other unique funding models. And right now, like I said, most people are relying on value for value. That is, whenever a developer puts out a new release, they put their release notes out there. They talk about the latest version, and they get zaps. They get sats sent to their post to reward them with a little bit of value for the value that their users received from them. And that works. It's probably not sustainable. And I think that with small usage numbers on Nostr, we maybe have like 25,000 active users. that's value for value probably isn't very sustainable for everybody at those numbers. But if you reach 1 million, value for value is probably going to work for a lot of people. So we just got to keep building until those funding models, become
It
more
just
lucrative.
continues to get more sustainable. The more
Yeah,
users there are and the more followers you get as a user, the more people that are seeing your content. And if you're putting out good content, you got the value for value right there.
yeah,
And we mentioned the word Zaps. That's just like clicking a little button. It's right next to the like button. It's just sending satoshis. So it's
yeah.
like the better
Zaps
than a like
actually
button.
in another 2 weeks. Zaps will be a 1 year old. Zaps launched.
Oh, cool.
I think February 15th. 16th, something like that. A Zap is just a Nostr aware Lightning tip. That's all that it is. And in the first like couple months of my Nostr usage, last year, we were paying invoices and we were sending satoshis around, and then we kind of realized that there was a better way to do things. And Will, the developer of Damas, he invented Zaps, and it was just a way for Lightning wallets to know that Nostr exists and to tell Nostr that somebody made a Lightning payment. So instead of liking somebody's comment or saying, "Oh, I like this so much," or spamming the reaction button on it if you're, like on TikTok or something like that, maybe you send them 1,000 sats, maybe you send them 10,000, 1 million, who knows? You really, really like that post, that note, that content, that meme, that GIF, whatever. Show the creator how much you like it based on the hardest money that we know, and it's worked out really, really well in some regards.
Absolutely. And I can say for sure from my experience that as a someone who likes to create content and put out a lot of posts, you see the people that are sending you sats. So it's when you're sending satoshi to somebody, it's not like you're just giving away your money for nothing. The creators can see that and they appreciate it. So that they might follow you back and they'll appreciate you back, and they'll you just are building a community that way. I think that the incentives are better than most people really give credit for. That like I remember when I was thinking, oh, like people can pay each other, but why would people give away their Bitcoin? Like why would they just give it up? But once you start playing around with it and start sending sats around, it's just everyone's like rewarding each other and having a great time. And if
You
someone
realize
hits a
Bitcoin's, yeah,
fantastic post like Max DeMarco, I'm sure you've heard of, he put out he puts out killer documentary style
yes,
videos, and he made a short Nostra documentary. I think it was only like 20 or 30 minutes, and he posted the link. I think it was just a YouTube link up on Nostra because it couldn't do a long form video on there, and he got like $3,000 worth of Bitcoin on this post just sent to him from SAS. So
yeah.
because
I
he made
highly
something
highly
awesome.
recommend you watch that video if you haven't
Yeah.
watched it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm putting that in show notes for sure. Max is the man. Like he makes super cool stuff,
You might
and
recognize somebody in there. Yeah.
some handsome fella in there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
talking about Jack Dorsey, not me. Yeah. Ah,
Awesome. All right, so let's get back on track here. I love going off on these sort of talking points, but I'm sure there's some things people have heard some words that they're not exactly sure what they mean. So let's
sure.
get those ironed out. So we talked a little bit about the private and the public keys. That's basically just a new, username and password plumbing,
Yeah.
essentially, more or less. Another thing we keep saying that we didn't explain fully yet is clients. So clients and relays are these two big things in Nostr. So why don't we hit those one at a time? What is a client? Give me that full breakdown.
Okay. So earlier when I was mentioning a little bit about this, I said that a client is it's just an app. It's just a website. It's just an app on your phone, and it connects to the protocol, and it does something with the protocol. Think of this as like your web browser, or think of this as like your email client. Like, do you use Gmail? Do you use Hotmail? Do you use Outlook, Thunderbird, whatever, or, whatever Apple Mail's called. I don't have an iPhone. I don't know, but whatever you use, those are all clients, and they all interact with, various mail protocols. It's just a way to interact. It's um, kind of geeky to say client. Most people say app, but it really, in the technical terms, it is a client for the protocol that interacts with the protocol, and there's a lot of them. And I would say To get an example of all the different clients out there, the different kinds, visit the website nosterapps.com, and you'll see not all of them because this website doesn't list them all, but it lists plenty of them to get a good sense of what is out there in a client on all the different kinds and variances of them. And these clients connect to relays, and that's the other term that we've mentioned a whole bunch. Relays are just servers. If you're from the Bitcoin world, you may have heard the term Bitcoin node. Bitcoin node is just a server. It's just a Bitcoin server. And that's all that it is. It's just a Nostr server or a Nostr node. It's named Relay because that's what Fiat Joff, the founder of the protocol, decided to call it. But whenever you hear the name Relay, you may think that's because it relays your information to maybe another relay. That's because that's what it sounds like it does, but that actually isn't what it does. It does not relay. Relays are very dumb. All they do is accept your text messages and keep them in a database, and then it sends your text messages when people request to retrieve them. That's all it does. It just sends and receives text messages and stores them in a database. There are some relays though that do a little bit more than that, but that's relay operators, relay providers that have done a little bit more, added some more bells and whistles to their infrastructure. But that doesn't mean that relays actually aren't important. Relays are actually very, very, very important because under the current setup on most clients, if we do not share a relay, we don't share one of these servers, meaning that if I'm not sending and receiving notes from the same relay that one of my friends or family members are, then as far as Nostr is concerned, we don't know that each other exists. I would never see that person's notes. I would never see their events. I would never know that they were out there because we didn't share a common relay. So it's a good practice to have multiple relays. That is, so one, you can connect with as many people as possible because you're putting your data on various places. People can retrieve your data from various places. And since you're sending your data to various places, that means your data is more censorship resistant because it's spread out and it's not housed in one or two locations. So you need to diversify your relays that you use. And maybe that's some private relays, maybe that's some public relays, maybe that's some small community relays that you have set up. There are paid relays that require some satoshis, usually varying in fees. Maybe it's a few thousand to 100,000 depending on the time frame. And these relays will, usually do different have different services and features to kind of differentiate themselves a little bit. Maybe there's a relay that says that it'll store your data for years. Maybe there's a relay that says that they provide Tor for more privacy. Maybe there's a relay that says they have geographic locations all around the world to make sure that you have fast responses and so forth. So
And like you mentioned earlier, you could even have a relay just for your community.
yeah,
Just like your little
absolutely.
town. Like if you want your neighborhood to have your own private relay where you can talk amongst each other and
Yeah.
organize gatherings and whatnot, throw a relay together, and then you guys are the only ones that can use that.
Yeah, yeah. What you would do then is you would whitelist or allow. You have an allow list to say only these public keys are allowed to send and receive data if you want to from that relay. Or you could say, these public keys are whitelisted to write only to send data to it, but maybe the world can read all that information. So you can make it as locked down or as public or as private as you want in that regard. I really think that these small community type relays will be more popular in the future as community organizations maybe spin up a relay or something, so they know that the users will all be connected together to be able to communicate together for their group, for their organization. I think that those will be important. Well, one caveat with relays that I learned a year ago, I like to pass on to people, is that relays aren't like Pokemon. You don't want to collect them all. You do not want to add 100 relays to your profile. You will have a bad time, because what this does is this means that you are sending your data and receiving data from 100 different servers. So that's like having 100 Twitters open every single time you send a tweet. You don't want to do that. It's going to use a lot of data. It's going to make things slow and unresponsive, and you're going to have a bad time. I did this a year ago. I learned for you guys, do not do it. Um, I'd like to say somewhere around, somewhere in the teens, relay wise, maybe a dozen, maybe 15, 16, somewhere around there. I think I use like 16 right now. It usually fluctuates as I add, remove, as relays, come online or die.
Yeah, and I just think that this opens up, and this is really where the idea of Nostr is like the decentralized social media as a perfect partner with Bitcoin as a decentralized money. This really starts coming into play because all of a sudden you start thinking about like, so you're posting on all these different relays and people are seeing your content from all these different relays. You're is super censorship resistant because if you say something stupid and some relay decides to ban you from it, you can just talk on the other relays and people will then see that relay X that, banned you. They can decide if they agree with that or not. And it's a true free market of like which of these relays do you want to listen to and be signed up to?
Yeah,
Because there's no central point of failure anymore. Because on Twitter, if you anger the lords of the algorithm, they either chop you off and you get your account deleted, or you get shadow banned even more insidiously, and so you just don't even know it, but people can't see you.
yeah,
And they have all the control. But with the relays, you choose which relays you want. There's going to be, I mean, and this is another point, is that I know that a lot of people, when they hear that there's like no banning possible on Nostr, they're going to say like, oh man, it's just going to be like a total mess of just porn and beheading videos and all this like garbage everywhere because, there's no banning. But to counteract that, you just choose the relays you like that have the right information flow for you, right?
absolutely. Yeah, if there's unwanted content that you don't want to see, then you can just change the relay, change to relays that don't have that content, and you can have your nice, happy corner, and you can have the vile corner over here somewhere, like you don't have to interact with that content if you don't want to. But in addition to that point about censorship and multiple relays and everything, if I'm a very controversial figure, and relays start banning me left and right, well, I can just say, all right, I'm running the Derek Ross relay. Visit derekrossrelay.com and plug in my relay into your Nostr client, and I'm not going to ban myself. So you can go there, you can have my relay because I'm running my own relay, and you can always see my content because I'm not going to ban me. So it allows me to be sovereign over my data and be controversial if I wanted to be, and nobody can really take that away from me. And I think that that's really powerful. Like if you look at groups of people that are living under oppressive regimes around the world, they could take advantage of this. They could take advantage of Nostr in this regard, and they do. There's several relays and clients that are banned in China, but it's like a game of whack-a-mole. They just keep popping up. You can't ban them all, and you could ban them temporarily, and that's why we say Nostr is censorship resistant, because you might be, briefly censored, but immediately you're going to pop back up somewhere else, and that's just the beauty of it, because it is a protocol where anybody can run any portion of it that they want to. Like we could actually have our own. I say our. It's probably not the right word. There could be a small pocket of behind the Great Chinese Firewall of Nostr running right now, and we would never know about it because we can't access it through the firewall, and it's running over there, behind enemy lines per se, and doing its own thing, and Chinese users are running their own clients and relays, and we would never know about it, and they would never know about us because we have no relays in common. But that's okay because they still exist, and they're using tools that we gave them, to communicate.
Yeah, and they're using it the way it's meant to be used, which is like completely open source, open protocol communication. And it's just so mind blowing to me. It took me a while, and I feel like I'm still kind of wrapping my head around that, about how you can literally post anything you want and no one's going to kick you off, except for people that where it doesn't even affect you really. Like, you can just keep moving to new relays, or like you said, if it all comes down to it, and absolutely everyone but one person on the entire Nostr protocol wants to get rid of you, you can just make your own relay, and then you can just
Yeah,
post away on that for your whole life, and you can have your one follower on there, and there's no, there's no manager of Nostr to go to and like complain about that person posting content, because there's no central point of failure. There is no Nostr CEO, just like there's no Bitcoin CEO. It's just a protocol, which is the power of the protocol versus the platform. And
absolutely.
you talked a little bit about the protocol and platform earlier, but in this case, now that we've laid some of that groundwork, how, just comparing the Nostr protocol to the Twitter platform, how big of a game changer is this for the world to really make that jump from a platform based communication to protocol based?
Well, it took me a while to realize this, and I think that I used to think how a lot of people in our world think. It's really hard to see outside of our social circles. It's really hard to see outside of what we currently view and experience. But if you really start to think about the other 8 billion people on the planet, like I mentioned earlier, that live in oppressive regimes where free speech may not be a luxury that they have on a day-to-day basis, like we do in other parts of the world, you really understand that these tools mean a lot to various groups of people that I may never meet, and that's really, really powerful to think about what Nostr can do for those groups of people and those types of people, and why Nostr matters to them and why it is so important to them. I think it's cool, but for them, it could be the difference between life and death, and that's shocking to most people to try to comprehend that. But that's the reality of the world, that it is bigger than our small social circles. It really is, and not everybody has the same privilege. So I think that if we think about that on a global scale, that Noster, you know, is very, very important, because without the freedom to communicate together, then we don't have the freedom to transact. And if we think Bitcoin is so important to be able to transact freely, well, we can't transact freely until we can communicate freely. How do I know, Ben, if I need to pay you, that I'm really talking to you without you signing a message or some, central agency or entity intercepting my communication to you when I say, hey, I need your Bitcoin address to send you money, and then them turning around and sending me a different address, or you never getting it, or something. So if you think about it that way, you know, Bitcoin and Nostr really are the hope for true freedom, and the two complement each other so well that you can't really have one without the other.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned how this is such a, in many cases, could be a life or death thing for people, because I talked to Knut Svanholm recently, and he told me a story about how someone came up to him at a conference and basically said, learning about Bitcoin from your book saved my life and my family, because it allowed us to, you know, use Bitcoin and utilize it to save these words in our head when we had to escape this authoritarian regime, and they shook us down for all of our money. We escaped and we had our Bitcoin. So, in the same sense, like these freedom technologies are completely changing the game for the people at the very bottom of these like horrible situations and giving them the opportunity to rise up from that. And you need to have these open source technologies out there and available. And Bitcoin and Nostr are so hand in hand for that. I just see that they're such a great team, and it's awesome that they're integrated with each other so well. Like you can literally just zap Bitcoin to each other whenever you want. You can transact communication and you can transact value right there whenever you want. And that's just a mind blowing thing. It's really hard to really wrap our heads around how big that is. I'd love to come back to this in 10 years and just think about, man, like where's this going to be?
You don't truly understand it until you do it all day long, right? Like
Yeah.
you kind of take it for granted, right? Like you think about like Bitcoin conferences maybe that you've been to or meetups and whatnot over, a few years. And when you're at these places, maybe you buy something with Lightning, or maybe once or twice a year you buy a T-shirt or something with Lightning, and you think, oh, this is cool. I use Lightning. I spent, a couple thousand sats. This is awesome. Well, Lightning shouldn't be a novelty. It shouldn't be like a once a year, three times a year thing. We should use it every day. And I didn't use Lightning every day until Nostr. Now I use it every day, all day long. And I think a lot of Bitcoiners were in that same boat too. They only used Nostr they only used Lightning a couple times, and then Nostr came around, and now we're zapping Sats all day long. We're ping ponging Sats all around, and we're building a circular economy. But most of all, we're making Lightning frictionless and fun and easy and stress-free to use. It's just fun and different. It's refreshing to be able to use Lightning in this capacity.
And a lot of people don't really understand how much of a game changer that is to be able to press a button and just instantly transact value with people, like literally instantly. Uh, it is so cool. Like you said, like we're in a camp of it's really cool. For some people, it's a life or death thing, but for everyone on Earth, it changes the way that we interact with each other fundamentally. Because now that, and we mentioned value for value, that is such a big thing because I think that's really a whole new just content paradigm where instead of needing to put paywalls on things or have like a paid version of your Substack or just walled gardens even around like your own content, individuals content, I think value for value is going to be the model that changes the game because it's really going to make it based on how good the content is that you produce. People will reward you for that. Uh, Tell me your thoughts about value for value as a model for content creators out there who are thinking about using Nostr more, or even just using value for value through like Fountain for podcasting, for example. It's really popping up everywhere. But
Yeah.
how does this model work for creators in the future?
Well, I'll give a personal example. I'm not a creator in the regard of content. I don't put out videos. I don't put out audio. I don't do artwork, things like that. But I do create value in other ways for people on Nostr, and I wanted to go to a conference last year, the Baltic Honey Badger Conference. I was invited to speak on a panel and invited to speak on my own talk about Nostr. And I said, I'd love to go, but I don't have the funds to go. And I wrote a long post on Nostr explaining why I wanted to go and left it as, community, if you feel that I should go, then zap me. And if you don't think I should go, then that's cool too. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm always doing. And in like 2-3 days, something like that, I raised what was it, 7 million Sats, maybe something like that. And I bought a plane ticket and went to Riga and spoke about Nostr, and that whole experience really helped me better understand value for value because the community, the people that follow me on Nostr, thought that I put out enough value that me going to Riga was valuable enough or going to be valuable enough for the Nostr community for them to give me some value, for them to give me some sats. They thought that it was worth it to them to do that. And that is the essence of value for value, is that the creator is providing some type of valuable content that the viewers view as valuable and will provide value back to them. And it's a value. I mean, it's a value for value exchange. It's not one way. So that just means that the creators have to do something that other people value. And on Nostr, we're having people, really start to understand that now. There's video creators. There's people that are putting out Bitcoin themed videos. There's artists, both digital and physical. There's painters that are creating content, that are showing their artwork, showcasing it daily. There were some OnlyFans artists there for a while that were posting their content on Nostr, and they were getting value for their content. There's bloggers, that write articles and they get zaps, they get value for their content. And I really think that now is the time to build that community on Nostr, because we are so early. And if you're a content creator, you're kind of getting in while the getting in's good, because we are a community that understands value for value, because we're Bitcoiners. Or not all of us. A lot of us are Bitcoiners. So
Pretty
we
much
understand.
all. Let's be
we
honest.
it's like
Mostly nerdy Bitcoiners in there right now.
like
We can be real.
99%. Come on now. Like, so we understand proof of work, right? And we understand value for value. So we have a need to, we're craving content. So any type of content that is put out there, we're going to zap it. You have a new podcast episode, put it out on Nostr. We're going to zap it. Thanks for giving us content before it reaches somebody else. That your new artwork, you posted on Nostr. Your new video, you posted on Nostr. Like I think that now it's an opportune time. When I was down in Costa Rica 2 weeks ago, I had a local Costa Rican approach me the last night there and said, "You keep talking about value for value on Nostr. Do you think it'd be valuable for me to put out essentially Costa Rican tourism tips, to go and visit Bitcoin Jungle, the places you should go with with your family, the restaurants you should go, the bars, the excursions, the jungle things, where should you go for swimming, and all the beaches, all the stuff." And he was basically a travel agent, tell me that should I come up with all this stuff and just start posting it on Nostr and have that be his niche. He wanted to be the Costa Rican destination for all of this content. And I said, you know what? It's not going to hurt to try it. If it ends up working, people are going to love it, and they're going to zap your content because you're putting in the effort. So, you got to have good content with videos and photos, and make it worthwhile. And I hope he does. Wonderful. His name's it was Jorge. He owns a hostel down in Costa Rica, and
I'll throw them in the show notes. Check them out after going to Costa Rica.
yeah, like
I want to go there.
that's another conversation, man. That was so much fun. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Was that so? That was like a conference, right? Or is it just a
yes.
get together Bitcoin
Yeah,
thing?
it was a Bitcoin conference. Maybe 200, 250 people. It was small, but the venue's small. The venue couldn't really hold more than 300 anyways. But it was the same place that Nostrica was a year ago. So it was at the same venue down in Bitcoin Jungle. And it's just everyone down there was, Bitcoiner or soon to be a Bitcoiner, or, they love Nostr because they just love freedom, and just love freedom technology, and just the pure life, Pura Vida, and it was a really good fit, and I would
Yeah.
definitely recommend going down there if you can.
Derek, I'm going to try something fancy here. This is the first
Uh-oh.
time I have ever tried to do screen share while using this podcasting platform. So I'm going to try this because I pulled up a video that NVK posted a couple nights ago of a girl having a
On
light bulb moment. I'm not sure if you
uh-huh.
saw that, but I think this would be perfect to throw in here. Let's give this a try. Hopefully it works. If not, I'll just cut this out. Let's see here. And it should be all right. Do you see the screen there?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, tell your story of Primal.
Okay, so I had a friend download Primal. I made a post and I realized, well, I got Zaps, I got sats from my very first post. And literally just in the palm of my hand, I was able to walk up to the counter, buy a meal, completely paid for from posting onto Nostr.
Very cool.
And then now I'm like, this is a lifestyle. I can just live off of this Bitcoin standard and receive this value for the community. And then there's infrastructure here where I could just like literally buy a coffee, buy breakfast, and it's freedom. Thank you so much. Liberation.
Okay,
So I mean, that's what it's all about right there.
Yes. So that is Lindsay. I met her.
Oh, cool.
Met her 2 weeks ago. My 14-year-old son actually met her first. She lived next to the event center where the conference was at, and she saw a big banner that said Bitcoin Freedom Festival, and she's like, "Oh, this is happening next door to where I live. I should check it out." So she came to the conference. Wasn't really into Bitcoin. She kind of got orange pilled through all of us there. But my son actually sat beside her in a little outdoor relaxing area and started talking to her about the orange pill and the purple pill and talking to her about Bitcoin and Nostr. She had no clue what these things were, and he was talking to her all, teaching her all these things, and she ended up coming to my Nostr talk. And afterwards, she came up to me and said, "Hey, Derek, I met your son, and he taught me all about Bitcoin and Nostr, and it's really, really exciting, really cool." And I was like, "You got to get on Nostr." And she said, I will. And then the last night there, I saw her at the after party bonfire and was talking to her about Bitcoin, and she was asking some questions about some things and some questions about Nostr again, and then is either later that night or the next night, I don't remember. She was at a local eatery with a bunch of people that I was friends with and met at the conference, and my friend Satoshi Tico, he got her to download Primal on her phone and set her up and everything, and it was just a community effort, but it was so cool to see her get it right away that, oh, I said hello on Nostr, a bunch of people welcomed me and was very nice to me and gave me, a couple thousand sats. I turned around and bought something in the community with that. That's pretty damn cool. Like, and that's somebody that gets it right away. I think that, once you experience it, you're not going to go back.
And she's such a perfect example of just the person who doesn't know anything about Bitcoin coming into it, but she's open-minded. She's clearly excited to learn new things, and she just went very quickly through the onboarding process. She happened to be surrounded by a bunch of Nostr studs, so they made it easy for her. And but that can happen to everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone can try it, and it's so simple. And even for someone like me, like I'm not in a community where I like go buy goods in person with my Bitcoin yet. I want to come to Costa Rica or El Salvador eventually, but for now I'm just stacking sats, and that's just as fun.
Oh yeah.
So when I put up a post that I like or something I care about and other people care about too, and by the way, the fact that you can't be banned from Nostr means you can be your entire goofy ass self. You can do whatever the heck you want. You can be all you.
We have a saying on Nostr: keep Nostr weird.
Keep Nostr weird always, and it actually will, because there's no consequences for doing too much crazy stuff. And so a couple of days ago, I just posted the classic picture of the weirdos out naked in the sun with my feet up in the air, just letting people know I'm getting it right now. I'm getting that sunshine. I'm not afraid to say it. And Gigi retweeted it, and a bunch of people just flocked in. And I got like some badge, like the ball sunning badge. I didn't even know badges were a thing, but I got it, baby.
Dude, I love badges, man. I'm a badge connoisseur. That's
It's
awesome.
just like everyone just floods onto you and just is laughing and like sending you sats, and like I just increased my Bitcoin stack from that, just like posting something goofy and fun. And everyone can do that. It's super easy. It's super simple to get started, and I'm super stoked about it. It's like Twitter sucks. What can I say?
Yeah, yeah. Once you go Nostr, you'll never go back. At
Now
least in
here's a
full
question.
capacity.
Speaking of Twitter, I know that some people, and this is one of the things that was sort of mentioned in Pablo's episode with John Ballas I mentioned earlier. The vision for a lot of Nostr users is that Nostr eventually gets so big and so useful and so decentralized and so ubiquitous that eventually Twitter will have to become a client for Nostr. That's kind of like a
Yeah,
similar goal as how Bitcoiners say like the goal is, sat cent parity, getting the Satoshi to 1 cent. Like it's like a lofty goal, but one that we're going to be pushing toward. So could you describe like how that works and like what
yeah.
steps it would take to actually get to that future?
Well, it wouldn't be really hard. All Twitter would have to do is say, well, they want to add decentralization. They want to connect to decentralized social because they see it's the future. Whatever they want to sell it as is the reason to do it. All they would have to do is spin up a relay for themselves that was like the bridge relay that bridges their platform to the Nostr protocol, and then they would make their client extremely customized where the Twitter client, you wouldn't even probably know that you're using Nostr. They would probably generate keys for every single Twitter user, and they would custody those keys and manage those keys for users. The client would be very different from the rest of Nostr, where it would be algorithm and ad supported, and they would have content restrictions that are allowed to be broadcast to their relay. Things like that probably. But yeah, it would just kind of just work. Where, as I mentioned earlier, like Zebedee, that company added social to their product, where they custody users' keys and just kind of integrate Nostr. The exact same thing with Twitter. Users wouldn't even know that they're communicating with people that are outside of Twitter. I would have Twitter maybe would generate a random key for me or something like that and would display it. Who knows? Or I'm sorry, a random username and password or something like that, like Derek Ross at Nostr. That would be my username on Twitter or something. There's all sorts of technical ways to do it. But from a non-technical standpoint, yeah, it would just happen and users wouldn't even know about it. It would just kind of work. Similar to what is it? Threads and ActivityPub. I mean, that Threads, Facebook's like Twitter clone,
Yeah.
recently integrated or added support for Mastodon/ActivityPub. Same thing. And actually, that if Threads ever becomes popular, which I don't
It's
think it
not.
is, but let's say it did, then you could literally just go up to Elon and be like, "Hey man, you should compete." And how do you do it? You integrate this social protocol to yours. And but yeah, I think that someday if Nostr does take off and Nostr has millions of users, it would just make sense for Twitter to do it. I don't see why every major platform wouldn't want to do it in some capacity.
And users would probably demand it because they want their followers to stick across different platforms. Like that's something that I really think that is a huge sticking point for people is everyone's tired of building an audience from scratch every time they move to a new platform. So
And
just the fact that we can sell that.
it's not even just so much as just like social. Think of things that we use every day, like music platforms. They generally have the same music nowadays. Like, 90% of the catalogs are probably all the same music. So my playlist I have on YouTube Music, if I want to move from YouTube Music to Tidal or to Spotify, like you just can't easily migrate it. There's migration tools out there now that exist that you have to pay. You have to pay for them, but things like that are such a pain in the ass, and they don't have to be. They shouldn't be that way. So what if they use Nostr as a communication layer in the background, and there was a standard for playlists? I don't know, but there's things like that that could exist between big social clients, I'm sure.
Cool. And you mentioned YouTube in there. I'd love to touch on that actually, because I know a lot of people who are video producers who make movies on YouTube, and they are feasting for an alternative to YouTube because there's so much censorship on there. And
So
I know that right now Nostr is definitely like a text-based platform. But what sort of path? I guess first of all, is it possible to have a Nostrified YouTube or like a video platform that has those censorship resistance properties? And if so, what steps would it take to get there? And how much time would that take? Because I want to start recommending this to my YouTube
yeah,
friends.
so it's a complicated question. I'll say that we do on Nostr have an alternative now. It just launched a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, called Flare. It's
That's right. I think you
flare.pub.
mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I think right now you can pay, I don't remember what the SATS amount is, to get a premium account that allows you to upload a couple gigabyte video file. So that's great. It's an alternative. However, the developer is a great guy. I met him before, and he's very bullish on Nostr, super talented developer, so nothing against him. However, his video service is centralized because the video portion of Nostr is centralized. Nostr is a text-based protocol, so not all of the Nostr content is decentralized. So that means your video description, the title, all of the content, all the metadata would be decentralized with your video, but your actual video file that you upload is uploaded to Zach's server, and that wouldn't technically be censorship resistant. Now, Zach is a freedom loving Bitcoiner that understands these things, and he understands why YouTube sucks. So he built an alternative. But, I don't know where his server is hosted. I don't know what jurisdiction and regulations it would be, susceptible to. So that's why I say that, unfortunately, the video content isn't decentralized. And a way around that would be to have multiple YouTube clones. Multiple flare.pubs exist all over the place, so you could upload your video content all over the place. Or alternatively, you host the video content yourself and use flare.pub as a distribution platform.
And I was sort of thinking it is centralized in the same way that clients are centralized, where like it's not like a bad thing, especially if there's a free market of a bunch of them joining.
Yeah.
They're incentivized to stay in line and not start censoring people, because if they do,
Yeah.
people are just going to leave them.
Yeah. Now, on a related note to that, so I'm in the midst of building a client called Nostr Nests. Super, super proud and super, super excited for it.
I
But
can't wait for that because I love Twitter Spaces. That's one of my favorite features that Twitter's brought. And here's a fun fact: Twitter Spaces are one of the things that made me a Bitcoin maximalist.
me too.
I talked about this in my second podcast episode with Luke Mikic. I jumped into Twitter Space like with a little bit of shitcoin brain still holding on, and I just asked them questions and they just totally roasted me. I'm like, damn, these guys might be smart.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm in the same way.
and so I love that format of just being able to have a huge community of people talking together. I think that's super valuable, and that's super cool. It's coming to Nostr. That's going to open
Yeah.
up some major doors.
So the criticisms I had about video centralization also exists with audio centralization, because even though the text chats, the chat room, all the zapping, all of that stuff, the scheduling of the nest, the broadcasting of the nest, the live presence so people can join and see, all that stuff all the Nostr integration is all decentralized except for the actual audio itself, because it's a text-based protocol. So the audio uses a central service, my server, and that's a central point of failure that I don't really want, and don't also want that responsibility either. So whenever we fully launch the new version, it'll be where anybody and everybody can download the code and they can run their own version of Nostr Nest themselves. So we could have a dozen, 2 dozen, 100 Nostr Nest servers spread around, and anybody can be that server admin that hosts that central point of failure, that central audio if they want. So that'll add some decentralization to it. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm hoping by the end of the month it'll be available for all to use, and it's going to be so much better than what's out there right now. I'm excited. I will let you know, Ben, when it becomes available.
Yes, please. It just makes me so excited to see these things being built, not only because I'm going to get a cool new toy, but also because I know there are so many other developers that are watching and excited to, use that and build new things themselves and create a market of it. Options,
Yeah.
just like more, and that's open source happening in action. And
Yeah, absolutely. And I think open source is key, and that's kind of why we're actually doing the rewrite, because the current version isn't fully open source, and there's problems with that, and I'm really happy to be in the stage that we're open sourcing it, building in the open, and then going to release it for everybody and anybody to run, modify, do whatever they want, and it's how it should be.
that's awesome. Are there any other big projects or milestones coming up that you're really excited about outside of the nests that you're building?
There's so many cool things. Like Pablo just launched something with Shipyard today, and I need to go back and fully read it. Because like I said earlier, like every week Pablo's putting out new stuff. So you gotta follow Pablo, and you gotta read what he's building, because every week there's a new toy. But he had a DVM, and DVM is a data vending machine. What is that? Oh man, that's even technical. It's an AI chat bot that does cool stuff. How about that? It uses AI, and you tell it, the AI, what you want to do, and it's like a vending machine. So you got to pay a little bit of money, and then you get the reward, just like a vending machine in real life. So his new vending machine, the Shipyard vending machine, it's a way to schedule posts, I think. I think any client can hook into this bot, where you'll just essentially send it your post, and then the bot will on your behalf schedule and send out the note for you, because most clients don't support scheduled notes, scheduled content. There's only, actually, I think Pablo's client, Shipyard, and then his one from like a year ago, nostrit.com, like, are the only two that support like scheduled posts. So it's really cool to have that now available, and every client can do scheduled content. So if you're a content creator, you can schedule out a week's worth of content if you want, and pay a little bit of sats to this bot, and it'll post them whenever you wanted them to have them posted.
Yeah, that's super cool. Basically, all the good features that people like from Twitter are being added slowly. Like they're just being integrated in. And I've noticed a bunch of the stuff that sucks about Twitter doesn't happen there. It's almost like it's taking all the good parts and leaving the trash, which is fantastic.
It's almost like humans are incentivized to be human, and to not have software and algorithms and advertisements, control us.
Yeah.
But there's so much cool stuff that's probably being built right now that I don't even know about, that we could talk in a couple months, and there'll be like all these things launched that I had no clue about. That's just the way Nostr is. There's always people that are always building. But if I had to pick something I'm bullish on or excited for to happen over the course of the next year, I would say two things that need to improve, and I know developers are actively working on it. It is search, because search on Nostr it works, but it doesn't work well. Search exists, but it can exist in a better capacity than it does. And then onboarding, because most clients don't have the best onboarding experience, or they have zero onboarding. And I think that that makes Nostr seem very technical. And we want to get Nostr in the hands of people that aren't technical. So I think that once more clients focus on the non-technical aspects and get this onboarding experience, and then users can get in there, and then we make content easier to be found and discovered, and they can search for it, then the masses will stay. Because right now people join Nostr and there's like, okay, now what? And then their activity dies off and then they disappear. But they come back 3 months later and they're like, whoa, this is all different now. And eventually one of these times they're going to come back and they're going to be like, hey, here's what you missed. Check out this. You can search for this. Did you know that your app can do this? By the way, here's this onboarding experience. I'm hopeful. Developers talk about this stuff all the time. I know it's coming, but they just got to build it, and we got to give them time and some sats. We got to reward
Yeah.
them when they do build it.
And we do see these big names pop up, and they have varying levels of activity, and some of them stay, some of them go. There's been Edward Snowden, Matt Taibbi, Whitney Webb, Zero Hedge, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came on. I
He
feel like,
posted one time.
yeah,
One time before Miami last year, he posted like that way, and I swear he posted just so he could say in his speech, I'm excited for Bitcoin and Nostr. Like,
hey,
and then
more
that was
power
it.
to him. He did it. He did it.
Like, he mentioned it one time, and I mean, it's like, okay, man, like.
I will still take that win, because every time that message can be spread out and more people can hear about it, that's a win for me. It's going to get more people on it. And I just think that we're at the phase right now where the more attention it gets, the better.
Oh
And
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
in attention is what's the word I'm looking for. All press is good press. Like
Yeah.
when Elon Musk made that announcement, I think this was like last year, and Twitter basically made it so you couldn't even post, or you couldn't share social links to other platforms.
Yes, this is my
And
favorite story
could
about
you recount
Nostr.
that? You probably remember that better than I did.
Yes.
I was kind of,
Yeah, December 2022, when people on Bitcoin Twitter started to notice and talk about Nostr, and then Jack Dorsey started to talk about Nostr. Coincidentally, Elon Musk said, hey, you're no longer allowed to share your Facebook profile, your Instagram profile, your LinkedIn profile, and your Nostr profile. And immediately everybody said, what the hell is Nostr? And why is it as important as these three platforms that have over 1 billion users each? This makes no sense. Like he literally just said that Facebook with 2 billion users was on the same playing field that Nostr had with 300 users at the time. Like that, so he saw its potential, right? Like there's no, why else would you even mention it? So Elon advertised to everybody that Nostr was important as multi-billion-dollar companies, and the rest is kind of history. Like all so many people thanked Elon for advertising Nostr in that regard and joined Nostr and haven't looked back ever since.
I mean, that's such a funny story. I love that so much.
Yeah.
And in the past, handful of months, it comes in spurts right now of new users, basically, because
Yeah.
it's still those like semi fringe folks who are really thinking way ahead and understanding that censorship is going to come after you no matter what side of the aisle you're on, what you believe. At some point, it's going to come down your head, and you better be ready for it. So you better have a backup plan. And that backup plan, which is Nostr, is turning out to be people's first plan because it's just better.
Yeah.
And so the more people that spend time there and the more big names that pop over, no matter how much time they actually spend there, it's just going to continue the momentum in the right direction. So I'm
Yes.
super excited about it.
Me too, Ben. I'm really excited. It's fun to be a part of it. I'm honored and blessed to be able to travel around the world and talk about Nostr. Like it's something Derek a year ago would have never thought that he would be doing and traveling to, 4 or 5 different other countries in the last year talking about Bitcoin and Nostr. It's wild to be able to say that I did that, and I'm looking forward to doing it over the next year because it really is that important. Like I really do believe it's that important for the rest of the world.
And Nostr for you has really become your thing because
Yeah.
even like I remember you in Bitcoin times when before Nostr, the pre-Nostr Twitter area. Like I
Yeah.
knew who you were, but you didn't really become a superstar until Nostr came around, and now you're like in the top 5 followed accounts on Nostr. I think. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, you're
it's
killing it,
the
bro.
it's the getting in early and but I I understood Nostr early on, and I provided a service for. I mean, I still provide a service. I run nostrplebs.com, and that helped me gain popularity in the beginning because people were using the service I provided, and and just things kind of snowballed. But yeah, I'm eternally grateful and just still kind of in awe that all this is happening and that I'm like doing all these things. It's exciting.
It's beautiful for sure. And I have 2 final questions for you before we wrap this up. The first
Yeah.
one is a perfect transition from that. So, as someone who's in like the top 5 most followed accounts, what are your tips for people who are joining the platform and wanting to really get caught up and get a nice follower base going? How do you grow on Nostr right now?
Well, people ask me this a lot, and it's a proof of work protocol, and you're like, what? It is? I thought it wasn't a blockchain. But it really is. You need to put in the work because Nostr doesn't have an algorithm to bring content forward at the protocol level. There isn't. There are not feeds. Their search isn't that great, and we don't have the algorithms and the discoverability that you have on other platforms. So you need to do the work yourself. And what does that mean? Well, that means you need to get out there and you need to engage. So if you follow somebody, if somebody follows you, you need to comment on their posts. If they reply to your posts, you need to interact with them and you need to reply. Like you need to put the social back in social. You can't just say something and then disappear, right? Like you have to interact and engage. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then they're not going to know that you're there and they're not going to want to follow you because they don't know that you exist. And then the other tip is it doesn't hurt to reboost your own note. That may have been a faux pas, to like your own and boost your own stuff on Twitter, but you need to boost your own notes because we don't have AI and algorithms to bring old content forward. And we have time zones around the world. So if you post something at 8 a.m. that you think was really good, well, 4 hours later, boost it. Go ahead and boost it. There's people around the world that missed it. And then at night, if you think it's still really good and you want more people to see it, boost it again. It's not going to hurt anything. Like I do that. I post stuff and I'm like, huh, I spent a lot of time on that. What do you mean I only had 10 comments or something? 3 hours later, you better bet I'm going to boost that. If I put time into it, I'm going to put more. I want more people to see it. And they said you have to do that because you don't have an algorithm that's doing that for you. That's because that's what the algorithm does. The algorithm says, huh, only so many people saw that, but they're, around the world, they're now all awake. I need to put that in their feed now. Well, you need to be your own algorithm. You need to do it. And once you do that, people will know you're out there and you exist, and they'll be more apt to follow with you because you're engaging with them and you're putting out content that they see.
And also, the people putting in low effort to their posts aren't going to be the ones doing all that retweet spamming or the repost spamming. Excuse me.
Yeah,
So, like, you're not gonna. It's not really a problem. Like the people putting good stuff out there will be the one using those secret methods. It's perfect.
And Zaps work too. Like if you're just doing a low, a low, 21, 10 sats, no, those kind of, I mean, they're appreciated. I love them. Thank you for those zaps, but they don't stand out. If you zap somebody 10,000 sats, 100,000 sats, they're going to notice you. I'm not saying you want to do that to everybody because you might go broke, but I've followed people before that they've sent me 100,000 sats, and I'm like, whoa, that person just zapped me 100,000 sats. Oh my, I'm not following them. Oh shit, I'm not following them, and I got to follow them right back. They did something that made me notice them, and I've made contacts and friends with people that way because they did something that made themselves stand out. And it's hard to stand out in a crowd sometimes. So
But
zaps
don't do
help
that
with that.
just for the hope of getting a follow back. I would stick with doing it just if it's really content that you like and you really love and support them.
Yes,
It's not always going to work.
I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
I'm just giving. But
yeah.
Zapvertising works though.
Oh,
We didn't talk.
man, that's a whole
We
nother
didn't.
topic. That is
Yeah.
so interesting to me. Could you
Yeah.
quickly talk about that one?
All right, real quick. So we know how most Lightning wallets allow you to add a comment, right? Whenever you send a Lightning payment to somebody. Well, since Zaps are just Lightning tips, Lightning payments, they can display that comment. And what we realized a long time ago is that most Nostr clients will see a web URL and transform that into the video, the image, whatever. So if you want to really get somebody's attention and you're a brand, you could zap somebody 1,000 sats maybe, and then you send them a link to your online store to buy your Bitcoin hardware wallet or to buy your whatever, your T-shirt. Maybe you're a podcast creator. You put out a new episode. Somebody you like posts something good, or somebody you follow posts something good. You zap them for their content, and then you put the URL to your latest podcast episode or your latest video. So you just, it's not spam because you're paying them to see a link to your content. And Zapvertising works. People zap me links to stuff. I watch it all the time. My friend Walker, like from the crypto couple, Walker and Carla. Walker has a new podcast, and he's famous for that. He will zap you with a link to every episode all the time. And when I see that pop up in my notifications, a link to his video or a link to his podcast, I say, "Oh, I didn't know he had a new episode out. I need to watch it." And I go watch it. Like, they work.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone who I'm spacing on the name, I try to just look it up. I can't remember what it's called. There's some service where you like put your info in there, like you put your public address.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but I basically signed up for that a few months ago. I was like, hey, this sounds interesting. I'm down to play with it, see what happens.
Yeah,
and
like,
I basically
you're talking about satagrams, right?
Satagram, yeah, I think that's it. And so I threw my public address in there, and I just get a bunch of random Satoshi just floating in my wallet. Every once in a while I look through there and like I can see those advertisements there. Like people are paying for it, so I'm not mad.
Yeah. The satagrams are a little spammy because they're low effort. Like they're like 1 sat, 2 sat, 3 sats. Like they're a little spammy. And there's a couple other, like there's like 2 or 3 of them now. They're all doing the same thing, besides just like satagrams.com or whatever, or XYZ or whatever it is. But the Zapvertising is just slightly different because it's people. I mean, it's done strictly over Nostr, whereas the other, the satagrams don't really have anything to do with Nostr. It's people posted their public keys, or what they did is they crawled Nostr and looked at all these Lightning addresses that people freely published, and then they used it as an address book, basically.
Oh, interesting. See, I didn't know that. I didn't look super deep into it. That's good info. Yeah. I'm glad you shared that.
Like they took, I mean, they took publicly available data and turned it into a business model. I mean, you can't hate them for it, but it is a little spammy.
Gotcha. That's good to know. So what is the way that you would condone is like the better way to do it? Like I don't know how Walker does it.
Yeah, well, so Blockstream is a company that advertised their Bitcoin hardware wallet all over Nostr months and months and months ago with Zapvertising. They just kept sending links to Blockstream Jade videos in their online store directly for buy links, and they would send you like 10,000 sats, and you're like, whoa, they sent me 10,000 sats. Oh, hey, there's a link. You click on the link, and it's like, oh, so many people bought Blockstream Jades after that. And then I know this because people were posting pictures of, hey, my new hardware wallet came in the mail, and it was because of Blockstream's advertising. So they maybe spent, a couple 100,000 sats advertising this, and they made, I don't know how many sales they made out of it, but low effort ones people don't really notice, right? Like it
Yeah.
looks kind of spammy. But if you're gonna send somebody a couple thousand sats, that's worth people's time. I think Walker, his number that he does is 696. So he sends like 700 sats to people with his podcast links, and that's more valuable than the 1 or 2 sat. That's just satograms, and those are
It's
kind of
very much
spammy.
more enticing when you get like a real number there. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So if you're gonna look into advertising with Zapvertising, like make sure it's worth it for your receiver to actually receive and view it. Like you're not spamming. You're trying to incentivize them to read it. That's the difference. Where a satagram is you send out 100,000 of them and you hope 1,000 people read it. Whereas Zapvertising is maybe you send out 50 of them, but you're incentivizing 50 people to read it.
Yeah. And well, here's what I'll do. I've got a few sats to spend in my lightning wallet right now. I'll make this the first episode I advertise on Nostr. Why not?
There you go.
What better one to do it with? Let's
Try it
go.
out.
Yeah, we'll
Try it
try it out.
out.
I'll do some digging and figure out the best strategies for that, and I'll make this the first one. So that's another thing to look forward to.
I look forward to seeing it. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. All right, last question, sir. I know it's getting late. I think for both of us now. So let's wrap this up. I want to just get cosmic brain level. Like, what are you dreaming about when you go to sleep at night? Just letting your brain wander through the Nostriverse 20 years out from now. What do you think the Nostr experience is going to be like? How are things going to be different? And what can we look forward to in this world where anything is possible?
Well, I think when we boil down to Nostr's basic functionality, how it works, it is just text messages sent to a server and authentication. And if we think about it, every single application that we have on our mobile phones, every single website that we interact with, does that. They take data, user data, and it's sent to a server, and somehow there's some type of authentication method involved with that. So in that regard, virtually everything could be rebuilt on top of Nostr. I don't think everything should be, but it allows us to build anything that has any type of communication layer on Nostr, and it allows us to at least start thinking in a more decentralized manner, to start getting back to kind of how the web got started, where it was decentralized and it was permissionless and it was kind of like the Wild West. And we centralized ourselves because that's where the technology led us. To get the best performance, to have the best product, you needed to have the best infrastructure. Large entities were formed because of that. And now, with technology being where it's at, where I can literally walk around with a dedicated server in my pocket, with gigs of RAM and storage space. And I think that high-speed internet that is readily available, low-cost hardware that's fast is readily available, I think it's going to allow us to really start thinking in terms of decentralization. And I think it's going to really allow us to start thinking in terms of users being sovereign over their own data. I think your social graph is just the beginning. So if I have to think, really cosmic and crazy here for a second, I mean, maybe Nostr is the start of the path that leads us down to completely having users being sovereign over all of their technology and data needs in the future, where infrastructure is just so perfect that I am fully in control of all of my data, every aspect of it, and all the applications that I use, and everything is open and everything plays well together. And it's just a beautiful technology bliss.
I love it, man.
I hope I'm
Beautiful.
right.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to keep grinding. We're going to keep working. We're going to keep bringing all sorts of different types of people into the ecosystem. And in an open source environment, the more types of brains and personalities you bring in, from the technical side like you to the idiots like me who just shit post and just have fun, we need all of that. So
Everybody builds in their own unique ways, Ben.
exactly. Everyone come on over to Nostr. I actually made a website redirect called studynostre.com, so I'm going to be throwing that in the show notes too. Hopefully that can help some
Perfect.
people. I put just a bunch of instructional videos and podcasts and whatnot that'll help people.
Great.
And I hope that people listening learn some today. I certainly learned a bunch. I'm super excited for the future. I know you are too. And thank you so much for coming by, Derek Ross, my man.
Absolutely. Thank you
We'll
for
be in
having
touch,
me.
dude. Appreciate you stopping by, and I'll talk to you later.
Peace.